Alright, so welcome to RF Talk, which is the official podcast of RayMaruFiles.com. I am your apparent host, Alan, which is going to be handling this ongoing show, and today we're here to talk a bit about the discussion that came about thanks to Cuphead. What we're going to do is look up its context and see how far my Google Foo can take me on that right, try to examine the sides of the discussion it brought up, and finally add my own take based on what I've learned. Also, for those looking for my usual partners, Rai and Chad, well, they're not available at the moment because one of them flew to another country for work and the other one has a house that can't handle a podcast at the moment. So it's just you and me, and I hope you do enjoy the tone of my voice, and if you're still here, that means you're game, so let's get right down to it. Cuphead is a 2D shooter and at some level a platformer, which has mechanics that can be generally traced from Metal Slug and Contra, where you control a character and freely run, jump, and gun around stages while shooting down enemies that attack you in a multitude of ways. Generally, the idea is to shoot at them, hit them, without you getting hit yourself. Very similar to how I deal with my own deadlines. Pretty common stuff. What makes it unique is how it mainly focuses on fighting bosses and how its creators have painstakingly taken it upon themselves to emulate the 1930s style of surreal Western cartoons in glorious 60 FPS. You should totally see this. If you have not seen any YouTube video, I am wondering why you haven't looked it up yet. Just go. Just take your moment and look up like a 1-minute demo, pause this podcast, and resume it once you're done viewing. Alright, if you're done, let's keep going. I honestly thought that only the likes of VanillaWare was willing to submit themselves to slaving away at this kind of production, but clearly Studio MDHR contests the idea. Now, if you're at all familiar with how these kinds of games, especially from this genre, tend to be designed, you would be aware of the sadistic difficulty that comes with them, to the point that they would be using even cheap tricks to take you down so that they can eat more of your quarters or your tokens or whatever it is that you would consider your budget for your local arcade, as that's where they were primarily set in. Cuphead embraces that tendency to deliver a really challenging but generally fair game. It also has gained a rather sizable following after its announcement in 2014 for its presentation and the gameplay it promises to be. The classic 1930s without the wars or the recessions or any of that. Now, come 2017, we have somebody known to be a game reviewer have his rather goofy playthrough of Cuphead posted online, only to become a point of ridicule for that individual and by extension other journalists within the industry. In response to that, some figures have claimed that they're getting bullied and gated out of credibility about what they know of the media. And games like Cuphead are examples of how a game can be designed to discriminate against less savvy or avid gamers. Like, wow, that sounds pretty heavy, but looks like there's things to pick apart and talk about, so let's have a closer look. First, let's look at how the whole thing that triggered it all came to be. From searching through YouTube, and that didn't take long, I found what was the original source of the video with some updates to its description. From what it says, it looks like they originally wanted to share the comically bad playthrough for the sake of sharing the laughs. It becomes pretty established that our person in question here was expected to play the way he did when they recorded it. So we can't really say if the guy was really attempting to play well or actively decided to play badly. Now, while some people might bring up how his review of Mass Effect 1 was very questionable, let's take note that that's Mass Effect 1 and X years ago, and people can change and learn over time, so I would really give this guy the benefit of the doubt. Now, if we look at the game itself, perhaps it can have failings in terms of how it can convey a user experience that was more intuitive towards what appears to be somebody who has never played Contra or a similar game in their life. I think it would be fair to say that the game has implied expectations of you knowing what to do, though arguably it's not very high in terms of expectations. For the record, I do believe it teaches you appropriately how the game works and is paced in a way that is intended for you to have opportunities to learn what you need for the upcoming challenges ahead. But also, I'd like to add that the default configuration is kinda awful and would give especially newbies a difficult time doing finer movement. But let's save the rest of that for the actual review if I have time to make it. Don't want to get hit by a deadline again that I can't really keep up with. Now let's get on the issue of how the idea of Get Good is apparently awful for a game because of how it would badly limit its audience and make this exclusive club where only those who are capable get to be, as if marking some sort of cultural territory. Is the idea of investing time and effort into the game to learn its intricacies really inseparable from what's known to be a snobbish attitude towards less accomplished or capable players? I believe this would be the case if the title in question didn't make visible efforts to teach the game to its players. At that point, I would agree that the game is just being a snob to noobs. Otherwise, if there is a visible effort to teach you what you need to know, or it's pretty apparent that the game wants you to win, I think you can separate the two. I think it's really gonna have to be a case-to-case basis depending on the game. Now, on the case of Cuphead, it's a title that doesn't require you to do research beyond playing the game. And the worst you're gonna get for not defeating a stage is an option to retry without any real delays. So Cuphead is a rather challenging game, and it encourages you to get good. I would believe that is the case. But I don't think it really punishes you for not being able to play well. In fact, it encourages you to keep trying and trying until you succeed. So I don't think it's really a game that's meant to exclude players that aren't really that capable in terms of playing a 2D shooter. There are also titles before that share the same or even harder difficulty than Cuphead, but they never received the same kind of attention. So why single it out? Maybe it's a case of simply protecting their pride, and the title in question getting caught in the crossfire. Much of the complaints sound more like, we don't like it, so everyone should consider the game bad. I mean, it's like nitpicking at small issues or making them bigger than what they really are. Like people stating that the art style can be found to be associated with some pretty objectionable ideas for the current age, or being locked out of certain content for playing the game on a lesser difficulty. Now, the argument that's worth addressing there would be getting locked out of some parts of the game for failing to play well. The running logic seems to be that as you all had paid the same price for the game, you are entitled to the same amount of content. But the thing is, the extra content hidden behind a skill wall is usually a challenge to the player rather than a core piece to the experience of the game. What I would consider as poor game design based on this idea would be requirements that need repetitive, valueless actions like level grinding that have no efficient alternative, or mandatory challenges that make no visible effort to teach you what you have to do, or leave you no way around it. Playing super well has always been optional, and can always be achieved by dedicating enough time to the game. And if you really want to see that extra material and can't be asked to give that dedication, it's likely somebody has uploaded it on YouTube. So unless you feel like you have to earn the right to see it, content is never really out of reach. Especially with how we have YouTube, Twitch, and all that capture, broadcast, and share technology available to us. Finding content can be pretty easy, but please stick to legal methods. So, given what I've discussed so far, should our game reviewers and relevant journalists be not only knowledgeable in the gaming scene, but have the same in terms of game know-how, which ultimately leads them to being fairly good at games? Well, the short answer in my perspective is no. I mean, I'm terrible at FPS games and I'm reviewing Destiny 2, and it's coming, so don't worry, it's coming. You don't have to be able to play well, but you should at least have an understanding of how the game works. To gain this, you don't really have to develop twitchy reaction times and memorize movesets. You simply have to expose yourself to enough of the game for you to understand its nuances. Generally, being good at games or having expansive knowledge of how they work or how their history was are very helpful pluses. Not having them doesn't disqualify you, but it does visibly make work a little harder. As an analogy, you don't exactly need a chef to tell you if food tastes good or not. But you'd probably like the idea that that person judging the food for you actually knows how to eat it. It becomes harder for me to believe a person's judgment about food, for example pizza, if they suddenly say that it should be eaten as a sandwich, or as a soup, or it should have pineapples on it. A critic can be transparent about their opinions on things. They can state that they're not a game designer or anything related, and that won't really invalidate what they have to say, so long as they have sufficient reason behind it. If they can articulate a proper argument, then it's probably worth to at least hear out. They can even say that the title that they may be reviewing may not be for them. I mean, there's games and genres I would not be able to take well to, but I try to stay objective about it. I don't think that stating your default disposition towards a certain topic will automatically tarnish your reputation with your audience, but it'll definitely make you appear more genuine, and that's something becoming more and more valuable to online audiences as of late. You can't really expect everything that comes your way to accommodate how you want to experience what they have to show. Thinking otherwise will probably lead you down a pretty stressful path in life. Not everything is for everyone, and that's probably fine. We can take note of the fact that over 4,000 games were released on Steam last year. That's Steam, just Steam alone. Admittedly, a good amount of that is probably shovelware, but that's games. They're all games. Even if you honestly wanted to, you probably won't be able to play half of them in a year. Because if you did that, that would mean you finish at least 5 to 6 games a day for an entire year. No breaks, no holidays, no nothing. So what's the point of getting fixated on a title that isn't for you? Those in the media that have massive reach may have influence over how games are received, whether it's a passion project from a small team of developers or a paint-by-numbers piece generated by a huge company with deep pockets. They can affect how it performs once it reaches the market. They don't really have to prove they can memorize a pattern or flawlessly complete a complex thumb dance on their controller, but they have to show that they do care about being truthful and objective a lot more than winning a petty argument. And those are my thoughts, and that's it for today. So thank you for listening. If you like this piece of work, please let us know by liking this video or leaving a comment. Heck, why not complete the set and high-five that subscribe button? Also, if you want to know how I review games, spoiler, slow, you can see that and more in our site raymarufiles.com. You can search and follow us on the usual social media sites as well. Again, this is Len, and thank you for listening.